Hi guys, and welcome to Global Crime Time. First things first, please smash a like on the video, and if this is your first visit to the channel, please consider subscribing. Don't forget the notification bell so you know when my videos are released. Now, while I was doing some research a little while ago, I stumbled across an unsolved case. It got me thinking, what is the top 10 unsolved cases in history? So in this video, I'm going to give you my top 10 of investigations that are now cold cases. I'm not going to go into too much detail of the cold cases because some of them I've already done in my videos and others I will be doing in the future. So let's have a look at my top 10 of cold cases. And number 10 is Lizzie Borden. We've all heard the rhyme. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. And when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. The famous rhyme makes it seem as if there was never any doubt as to whether Lizzie Borden killed her father and stepmother on August 4th, 1892. Officially though, the identity of her murder remains a mystery. Lizzie and a maid, Bridget Sullivan, were alone in a Borden house with Mr. and Mrs. Borden when Lizzie, according to her testimony, discovered her father dead. He had been repeatedly struck in the head with a blunt instrument. Upstairs, she found the body of her stepmother. Initially, the evidence against Lizzie looked damning. She had recently attempted to purchase prussic acid, a poison, and was alleged to have burned the dress in the stove. What's more, Sullivan, her suspected accomplice, was seen on the evening of August 4th carrying a parcel out of the house. But at Lizzie's trial in 1893, the court determined that all that evidence was merely circumstantial. Lizzie wasn't convicted, and no other suspects were ever arrested. In at number 9, I've put Tupac Shakur and BIG Smalls. Tupac Shakur had been shot before. The tattooed urban poet and self-identified thug was a central figure in the East Coast-West Coast hip-hop rivalry. The first Tupac shooting, November 30th, 1994, left the rapper with 5 bullet wounds, including 2 in the head. Los Angeles-based Shakur pointed his finger at a number of New York rappers, including Sean Combs and the notorious BIG. He would later release a number of scathing rhymes against both Combs and Biggie Smalls, including one in which he claimed to have slept with Biggie's wife. On September 7, 1996, Tupac Shakur attended a Mike Tyson boxing match at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, then got into the passenger seat of Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight's car. At a stoplight, a white Cadillac pulled up next to Knight's car, rolled down its windows and fired multiple rounds into Shakur's passenger seat. Shakur was taken to hospital where he died of internal bleeding after 6 days. A few months later, while waiting at a Los Angeles stoplight, the notorious BIG met the same fate. Thanks to fanatical conspiracy theories, uncooperative witnesses and shoddy police investigations, neither murder has ever been solved. Number 8. JonBenet Ramsey. It was December 26, 1996, when John Ramsey, a wealthy software executive, found his 6-year-old daughter, JonBenet, dead in the basement of their Boulder, Colorado home. 8 hours prior, his wife Patsy had found a ransom note demanding $118,000 for their daughter's safe return. No call ever come from a kidnapper. So unravelled the saga of a young beauty queen whose murder has put a cloud over her entire family, the Boulder Police Department, and the district attorney in charge of solving the case. Investigators in Boulder, who were dealing with the city's first murder that year, failed to conduct a proper search of the house and even allowed friends of the family to walk in and out of the crime scene as the family and police waited for a ransom call. While John's 2 adult children come from a previous marriage were cleared of the murder, suspicion remained on the 3 people who were the only ones known to be home when JonBenet was killed: her 9-year-old brother Burke and her parents. Almost 3 years after her murder, Burke, now 12, was questioned by a grand jury but never charged. John and Patsy published The Death of Innocence in 2000, detailing their story even as they remained suspects in the case. In June of 2006, Patsy died of ovarian cancer just 2 months before the arrest of John Mark Carr, an American man who had admitted to killing JonBenet, only to have the case dropped against him 2 weeks later when DNA tests show he could not have been at the crime scene. This past summer, prosecutors were finally able to conclude that John and Patsy were not responsible for their daughter's murder, but that DNA points to an unexplained third party. John Ramsey still retains hope that evidence will track down his daughter's killer and finally rid his family of the stain that continues to make its mark. Number 7. Takaputi. Brought to Irish shores through a trade during the Napoleonic Wars, the hieroglyphs painted on the coffin of an Egyptian mummy were deciphered as holding the remains of a wife of a nobleman. But it was when scientific analysis took a closer look, it was discovered that not only had she been stabbed in the back, she had died as a result of an axe-inflicted wound. We'll never know who the murderer was, as they're now lost to the wheels of time. So the case of Takaputi will never ever be solved. Number 6. Jill Dando. The former Crime Watch presenter was shot in the head outside her West London home in 1999. In 1987 she worked for Television South West, then BBC Spotlight, before being transferred to London the following year, where she went on to archive national fame. The shooting, another of Britain's most infamous unsolved crimes, shocked the capital and the population as a whole. Miss Dando was found by neighbours slumped against her front door in a pool of blood after suffering a single gunshot wound to the head. Her murder prompted a huge investigation led by Metropolitan Police and resulted in Barry George being sent to prison for murder in July 2001. However, he was granted a retrial on appeal and unanimously acquitted by a jury in August 2008. It has long been suspected that Miss Dando was shot by a professional assassin, and as of now, it's still a cold, unsolved case. Number 5. The double murder of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. O.J. Simpson. But the law says otherwise. With circumstantial evidence piled up against him, from forensics to the slowest, most riveting high-speed chase in history to the dubious decision to pen a book called If I Did It, assembled a dream team of lawyers who convinced jurors that since the glove didn't fit, they had to acquit. And to the disbelief of Transfixed Nation on October the 3rd, 1995, they did just that. However, Simpson was found liable for the deaths in a related civil suit, and as of now, the double murders remains unsolved. Number 4. The curious case of Lord Lucan. The young peer, Lord Lucan, disappeared without trace after the body of his family nanny, Sandra Rivet, was found in his home. She had been bludgeoned to death with a lead pipe. Lord Lucan has not been seen since, and his disappearance has long been the subject of fascination in Britain. Lady Lucan, known as Veronica, believes he threw himself off a boat in the English Channel the morning after the murder, although many speculate he's still alive. 79-year-old Lady Lucan was interviewed as part of the ITV documentary entitled My Husband, The Truth, which investigated what really happened on the now notorious 1974 evening when both women were viciously beaten in the family home. As of today, it's still a mystery and therefore unsolved. Number 3. The Black Dahlia. Hollywood's most famous murder case unfolded on January 15, 1947, when the raven-haired 22-year-old actress Elizabeth Short was found dead on Norton Avenue between the 39th and Coliseum Streets in Los Angeles. Her body had been cut in half and appeared to have been drained of blood with precision. The murderer had also cut 3-inch gashes into each corner of her mouth, creating a spooky, clownesque smile. Short's murder quickly became a sensation, not only because of its location in the showbiz capital, but also because the police worked in tandem with the press to spread clues in hopes of locating a suspect. Several people confessed, only to be later released for lack of evidence. Much speculation surrounded the details of Short's life. She was grieving after the death of a man she fell in love with. She reportedly befriended many men while frequenting jazz clubs, making it nearly impossible to pin down who she could have been with before she died. Her unsolved murder has spawned several movies, television specials and books, and as of now, Elizabeth Short's murder remains a cold case. Number 2. The Zodiac killings. It all started with an encrypted letter sent to the San Francisco newspaper that said, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." It was sent to them by a man who called himself the Zodiac. For most of 1969, a serial killer terrorised Bay Area residents, killing 5 and possibly more. It started on December 20th, 1968, when a couple was shot to death while sitting in a car on a lover's lane. The killer would strike several more times over the next 10 months, shooting a couple in a public park, trussing up and stabbing yet another man and woman near a peaceful lake, and shooting a cab driver in the head. What made the case so fascinating, though, was the way he toyed with police and reporters. He called in several of the murders and began to send coded letters to newspapers using a cross within a circle as his symbol. At one point he mailed in a piece of bloodied shirt to prove he was who he claimed to be. Another time he threatened to shoot up a school bus full of children. The investigation went on for years. Several suspects were considered and questioned, but to no avail. The Zodiac, up to now, has never been caught, making this a cold case. There can only be one crime holding the number 1 slot in my top 10, and that is the Whitechapel murders. Between August 7th and November 10th of 1888, 5 women were killed in the Whitechapel district of London's East End, their throats slashed and their bodies mutilated in a way that indicated they all met their fate at the hands of the same person. Half of one victim's kidney was even mailed to the police, along with a series of taunting notes penned by someone calling himself Jack the Ripper. The law's failure to identify the killer led to such an outcry that both the Home Secretary and London Police Commissioner resigned in disgrace. It also led to Queen Victoria to question the police's efforts in catching the killer. Jack the Ripper, whoever he was, has been the subject of hundreds of books, articles and several films. The theories surrounding his identity vary: a covert Masonic plot or a member of the royal family. Many ripperologists claim to have their own theories and suspects, but hardly any are in agreement with each other, and as of October 2022, Jack the Ripper's identity and my number 1 unsolved crime remains clouded in mystery.